Captain Jake Morrison stared at the massive alien vessel through the viewport of his mining ship Lucky Strike and let out an unimpressed whistle. Well, that's definitely not the asteroid belt. His crew gathered around him 5 humans who'd been conducting routine mineral extraction operations near Jupiter when their experimental FTL drive had malfunctioned, catapulting them across the galaxy in what their engineer Tommy had eloquently described as the universe's biggest oops. "Think they're friendly?" asked Sarah, the ship's geologist, as she watched dozens of smaller craft emerge from the kilometer-long vessel ahead of them. "With that many weapons, probably compensating for something," Jake replied, then activated the communications array. "This is Captain Morrison of the human vessel Lucky Strike. Sorry about dropping in unannounced. Our GPS seems to be on the fritz." The response came in perfectly translated English, though the voice carried an unmistakable tone of pompous authority. "Primitive vessel, you have entered the sovereign territory of the Galactic Dominion. Prepare to be escorted to the capital ship for processing." Tommy, who had been elbow-deep in the FTL engine, poked his head up. "Did that guy just call us primitive? Our ship's running on tech we invented last Tuesday." The alien escort ships, sleek, elegant craft that looked like they'd been designed by committee, formed up around the Lucky Strike. Jake noticed they were keeping a respectful distance. "Smart of them," he muttered. "Sarah, remind me what we're carrying in the hold." 40 tons of refined plutonium, some experimental antimatter containment units, and your grandmother's chocolate chip cookies. "Right. So basically, enough firepower to turn this whole fleet into a very expensive light show." As they approached the alien capital ship, the crew got their first look at the Galactic Dominion's flagship. It was certainly impressive gold-plated hull, elaborate decorative elements, and enough blinking lights to power a small city. "Looks like a casino," observed Mike, their communications officer. "A really tacky casino," Sarah added. The docking bay they were guided into was enormous, filled with alien species that looked like they'd stepped out of a science fiction convention. Jake counted at least 12 different types, all wearing elaborate uniforms covered in medals and rank insignifiers. "Captain Morrison," came the voice over the comm system, "you will disembark immediately for audience with Supreme Admiral Zix Thala, Conqueror of Systems, Master of—" "Yeah, we get it," Jake interrupted. "He's important. Give us 5 minutes to grab some snacks." The boarding party that met them consisted of 7-foot-tall reptilian beings, wearing enough ceremonial armor to outfit a medieval army. Their leader, presumably the Supreme Admiral, had more decorations than a Christmas tree. "Primitive humans," the Admiral declared, his translated voice dripping with condescension. "You stand before the mighty Galactic Dominion, rulers of 3,000 star systems and masters of technologies beyond your comprehension." Jake looked around the docking bay, noting the chemical-based propulsion systems, the inefficient energy conduits, and what appeared to be actual vacuum tubes in some of the control panels. "Huh?" he said finally. "That's nice." The Admiral's scales shifted color, apparently the alien equivalent of being taken aback. "You do not seem appropriately awed by our technological superiority." Tommy stepped forward, pulling out his tablet. "Mind if I ask what you're using for power generation? Because this reads like you're still burning fossil fuels." "We stopped doing that about 50 years ago." "Impossible," the Admiral sputtered. "Our civilization is 10,000 years old." "Yeah, and it shows," Sarah said, examining the nearest wall panel. "These computer systems look like they're from our 1980s. Are those actual buttons?" The crowd of aliens began murmuring among themselves in various languages, their translation devices struggling to keep up. "Look," Jake said, trying to be diplomatic, "we appreciate the whole Galactic Empire thing you've got going on. Very retro. But we're just trying to get home. You wouldn't happen to have directions to the Milky Way, would you?" Supreme Admiral Zix Thaler's expression suggested he was experiencing the alien equivalent of an existential crisis. You're not impressed by our vast fleet, our conquered worlds, our advanced weaponry. Mike looked out at the assembled ships through the bay's force field. Those pulse cannons look pretty standard. What's your maximum yield? 50 megatons per blast, the Admiral declared proudly. The humans exchanged glances. Tommy cleared his throat. Our mining charges are rated for 200 megatons. You know, for asteroid work. Your mining charges? Yeah, we use them to crack rocks. Nothing fancy. The Admiral's aide, a crystalline being who looked like a walking chandelier, whispered something urgent in his ear. The Admiral's scales shifted through several colors before settling on what Jake suspected was their equivalent of pale green. You're saying, the Admiral said slowly, that your species uses weapons-grade explosives for industrial purposes? Well, when you put it like that, it sounds dangerous, Sarah laughed. But don't worry, we have excellent safety protocols. Only lost 3 mining platforms this year. 3 platforms? Tommy's still working out the bugs in the antimatter containment system. The alien crowd began backing away noticeably. Look, Jake said, checking his watch. This has been fun, but we've got quotas to meet. Our company gets cranky when shipments are late. You don't want to see what happens when Earth bureaucrats get cranky. Earth bureaucrats? The Admiral whispered. Oh yeah, they're terrifying. Make your whole galactic conquest thing look like a hobby. As the humans headed back to their ship, they could hear frantic conversations erupting throughout the docking bay. Words like bureaucrats, antimatter, and quotas kept floating through the translation systems. Think we made a good impression? Sarah asked as they climbed aboard the Lucky Strike. Hard to say, Jake replied, starting the engines. But I notice they're not trying to stop us from leaving. As the mining ship departed, Supreme Admiral Zix Thaler stood in stunned silence, watching the primitive human vessel accelerate away at velocities that his best ships couldn't match. Sir? His aide asked nervously. Should we pursue them? The Admiral looked at the readings showing the humans' engine output, thought about their casual mentions of antimatter and bureaucrats, and made what he considered the wisest decision of his 10,000-year-old civilization's history. Absolutely not. And make a note in the star charts, Milky Way galaxy, do not disturb. Sometimes, he reflected, being unimpressed was the most terrifying response of all.